Hello, welcome back to 3D drawing through Model Railway. In today's lesson we're going to move on from doing this centre section. I think we've got this to a point now where it's pretty detailed. I'm pretty happy with the way it's looking. I'm going to move on to doing some buffers now, I think. Now unfortunately we don't really have any scale drawings for the buffers. Again, all we've got really is on the plan here we can see the height or the length of them from the buffer beam. We do have, there's plenty of pictures that we've got. We can see that it's a two-part buffer. Obviously a rectangle with a couple of bolts on it, a small circular section, and then a larger circular section. The buffer head you can see is curved in two directions. There's a curve that direction and then a curve in this direction. That would be really difficult to draw that. What you could do is do a cross-section profile of a rectangle in the middle here, and then a cross-section profile of a rectangle here. Then you'd have to draw a sketch on the outside of the buffer with the curve into the corner, and then a curve out on the top section. And you could use a loft using a guide rail. But if we're looking at end gauge, what difference are we going to be looking at distance-wise there to there and there to there? Probably 0.05 of a millimetre, maybe 0.1 of a millimetre, and you will not see it. Even in double O, I think you'll be struggling to see it. If you want to spend the time on your buffers and make them look exactly like this, then by all means, do that. But I think the only curve I'll be putting in is this top one because it looks a lot more pronounced than the side one, and it just puts a slight curve in that front surface, and nobody's going to spot it. The amount of time it would take you to draw that, only you will know that that's slightly wrong. And the majority of people looking at that wouldn't even spot it, to be honest. So let's get this drawn on. So we're going to draw these again as a new component. So we'll come at the top here, new component, and create them as buffers. So the reason I'm doing this is as a separate component is so that if you wanted to, you could print them separately, or if you choose to, you could actually join them onto the main chassis and print it while this is all being printed at the same time. So we'll come onto this front surface. Now if we look at the picture as pretty much face on, you can see how the corner of the buffer is slightly lower than the bottom of the chassis here. You can see this bit is actually pretty much on the bottom, so this is going to be slightly lower. And not a picture. Coming out width wise, we're not going to be out beyond the side of the chassis frame. Unfortunately, there isn't a perfectly square one picture that we can use, but I'm going to have this just ever so slightly inside this corner, I think. Okay, so if we start with a sketch on this surface, so we select that bottom chassis surface, and then we can create a rectangle. As we said, looking at this one, it's ever so slightly raised from the bottom. So if we just zoom right in and we can draw a rectangular shape. I'm going to define the distance between those two as 0.1. This is where it now becomes a little bit more challenging because we haven't really got dimensions. We've got to sort of just guess what this size is. What we could do, I suppose, because we've got this canvas, we could extrude this forward slightly, and then if we just rotate this round, you can see the thickness of the buffer here. So this is probably going to want to be a little bit thicker because, as you see on this picture, the circular section is slightly smaller than the rectangle. So we want to be a little bit bigger, I think, on that. So if we define that as maybe 1.5 millimeters. Let's have a look at that. So that's probably okay. This sketch is probably a little bit low looking at this, but you can see how that's probably about the same sort of size as this. So I'm happy with that dimension there. Distance from the side. Now again, we're looking at this and trying to guess that that is going to be in line with this frame here. and we know that we've got a recess here of 0.5 millimeters. So if we come back into our sketch and find the distance from the edge there as 0.5, I'm just thinking maybe we want a little bit more, because no, looking at that, I would say that's pretty much in line with that coming through. What do we want the distance across? I'm going to go 2.2, I think. Okay, and we've extruded it forwards, I think 0.1, didn't we? I'm just going to bring it through to 0.2 millimeters, so it's got a bit of thickness to that base. Okay, now I'm going to draw a sketch on the front surface. Using the centre point circle, just find the two centre points, and we can see that it's, if we look at the picture for you, it's slightly smaller than the outside of the rectangle. So we know that we've got a height of 1.5, so if we go for 1.35, that gives us that little gap all the way around, and we can then extrude this forwards. So the extruding forwards I'm going to do to the length of where that join is there. So that's like 1.5 millimeters, which is almost 9 inches, and that's probably a little bit less than that. It's probably only about 6. So I'm going to bring it down to 1. Okay, and we can see that on the picture this is curved slightly, so I'm going to just drag it out ever so slightly. Again, you probably wouldn't see this on the printing, but I'm just going to do it so that we've got it on there. It's got that little curved section there. See what the effect I'm getting. Okay, so the next part is again on this front surface. Again, we're going to draw another centre point circle, and we're going to bring it out. So I'm going to go for 2 millimeters. Selecting both of these profiles, and then we're going to extrude it. So now I've gone for 2 millimeters, not knowing exactly what this is going to be. Looking at that distance from there to the top, there to bottom, it probably needs to be a little bit smaller. So I'm going to come forwards there. You can see I've come to the back here, 2.7. I'm just going to go back in here, edit this sketch. We know we've got 2 millimeters. I'm going to go for, say, 1.8. Finish that sketch. So now, yeah, I'm happy that the distance here is matching the distance here. Okay, and now we're going to draw that rectangular shape again on the front surface. So again, we're going to be using a sketch on this front surface here, and we're going to be using that centre point rectangle from that midpoint there. So now, dimension-wise, you can see how it's ever so slightly taller than the buffer, and unfortunately there's none from the back of it, but we've already sort of worked out that the distance is going to be in line with the edge of the frame here. So something probably of that sort of size. So I'm going to go for 3.2 as the width of the buffer, and then the height 2.2. Selecting both of these features and then extruding it forwards. Okay, thickness wise, I'm going to come to about 1 millimeter to start with. Now clearly I'm not going to leave it like that. What I'm going to do is create a little bit of an arc surface to this. So I'm now going to sketch on the top profile. I'm going to be using the arc tool, and I'm going to be doing a 3-point arc. So I'll select the two sides, find the midpoint. I'm just going to drag it out slightly. Now in fact, what I don't want to do is collect those two corners. I'm going to draw a line down here. I'm going to do a line of 0.3 on the length there. And the same on this side, 0.3. And then I'm going to do my arc. Now, the reason I did that is you need a little bit of thickness. If I did it from here, you'd end up with a tiny little sliver on the end there, and it just wouldn't print at all. So again, finding that midpoint and drag that forward. So you can see how it snaps to that position there. Okay, and that I don't really need to define it. I'm just going to extrude that all the way through the model to the bottom surface. So now I've got that curved effect going all the way around. If you look at the corners of the buffer, they're slightly curved. So if I just select 4 corners, holding select down while you select them. Sorry, holding shift down while you select, not select. Okay, and then click on fillet. Zoom down to the front, and then we can just get it centered so we can see what we're looking at. I'm going to drag the corners in. I'm going to go for 0.5 millimeters. Okay, so we've got that sort of shape. Now, as I say, it's not perfect because it's not curved in this direction, but you're not going to notice it really. And, you know, if you try to do a curve here, you'd end up chopping off part of the model in each top and bottom. Now, you could do it, but it's not going to give you this effect that you're after. You'll end up with it more flat and straight going across the top. So, you know, I think it's good enough. It looks like the buffers, and you know, you're not going to get many people come along and say that that's not spot on perfect. So what can we do now? Well, you need 4 of them, so let's copy them. So if we do copy and then paste, we need one on the other side. You know, that's going to be pretty much there. It's lined up on that corner. Click on OK. So now we've got 2. Okay. The other way you could have done it was to do the mirror tool. So you can use mirror and then bodies, select the 2 bodies, and then the mirror plane. Now if we remember at the top here on these, we've got our mirror plane here, which is the midpoint of our DTS unit. If we select that, it'll mirror across to the other end. Okay, so now we've got our 4 buffers. You could, if you wanted to, you could join them onto the chassis, or you can leave them all as separate and print them individually. Okay, let's just turn the canvas off so we can see, and we'll turn that mirror plane off. So a nice little easy one there, really. You know, if you wanted to, let's have a quick look. Height here, and height across. Let's compare it to this photo. So you see you've got a big gap here, so that's probably not far off. And yeah, I'm thinking maybe the width needs to be a little bit wider. If we come back to, I think it's this sketch here. Let's make them a little bit wider. Let's go 3.5 millimeters. So now it sticks out the side slightly. And I want to move them in. So I'm going to come all the way back to the beginning of the sketch, edit that. So we went from 3.2 to 3.5, so this should be now 0.65. And then that should bring it back to the edge. Okay, let's go back to that. Maybe it does need to be 0.8. That's what's happened. This isn't defined in the middle here. Edit the sketch. See how if you don't fully define something, it catches you out. Spin that round. Let's draw a line down the midpoint here, and then snap that to the line. Yeah. Okay, and you can see why these haven't come across. It's because we did the copy. So when we copy and moved, you moved it all the way across. But obviously, haven't. When you do that, you don't account for the effects you make afterwards. So what we're going to do is actually delete that copy. We'll probably have to delete the mirror yet. So we'll go and we'll do a mirror again, selecting that body, and we'll turn the mirror planes on. So we can select this one first, start put it down the other end, and then if we do the same again, do mirror, select the two bodies, mirror plane being the mid plane there now, and that'll be, there you go, you can see how it's now centered again. Okay, so that's our mirrors. That's our buffers. Nice little easy lesson there. Hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please like and subscribe, and make sure you come back for the next ones.